Excellent. Thank you for that energetic opening volley, and thank you so much, Adam, and also to Nick of AASHTO and the National Operations Center of Excellence in partnership with the Institute of Transportation Engineers and ITS America for your ongoing work and valuable leadership within the professional community nationally in so many areas, illustrated in good part, I know, by today's webinar. I also want to acknowledge the chair of the TRB ITS committee and my friend Dr. John Obenberger, whom I support as a committee member and facilitator of digital infrastructure initiatives within that committee. Also, not to be comprehensively inclusive, but representative, appreciative of leadership from ITS America, specifically their Digital Infrastructure Committee, now co-chaired by Iowa DOT Director Scott Marler and MyoVision's CEO Curtis McBride. Also grateful to continuing contributions from 5GAA and their North American Executive Director, John Quant, their Technical Program Lead, Anastasia Sandria, their CTO, Maxime Flement, and extremely hardworking membership illustrated by people like Jim Meisner, Steve Voigt, Freedom Rami, and others, and would draw your attention to their Roadway Traffic Operations in a Digital Age concept paper for National Roadway Digital Infrastructure, which we'll share by link in the chat pod in a few moments. The reason that I highlight those names is it's ultimately been over the past 6 years that these and other national and global organizations have engaged with the US DOT, Federal Highway Administration, to explore possible definitions for roadway digital infrastructure, or RDI, and to consider aspects of a national vision for advancing and integrating both the technological and the institutional dimensions of RDI. A key institutional enabler that has emerged is that, if not the key institutional enabler that has emerged, is that of the interstate highway-based transcontinental corridor. We can go to the agenda slide, Ted, and note that the agenda today consists of 4 parts. First, Ted, Valerie, and I will briefly frame the topic of roadway digital infrastructure, the status of initial priority initiatives to advance roadway digital infrastructure at national scale, and finally, the vital role of transcontinental corridors as a topological context for this integration of RDI. You can go to the next slide, Ted. Secondly, you'll hear directly from these leaders that are making transcontinental corridors happen to better understand both how these partnerships are advancing RDI and the challenges and opportunities that they are encountering and innovatively addressing. Next, we'll explore the nature and role of national organizations that have evolved specifically, strategically focused on the role and the function and advancement of transcontinental mechanisms and issues. Finally, we'll acknowledge key insights harvested from today's conversation and prepare to hear from you by direct chat pod comment that we'll be collecting throughout this conversation and through a follow-up participant survey that we'll introduce at the end. Please consider this a conversation in an ongoing discussion that will continue over the summer and into the coming year. We can go to the next slide. As I noted, as a member of TRB, also a member of ITE and ASCE, as well as on behalf of my employer, the Federal Highway Administration, my hope is that today's webinar illustrates this vital role that a national network of transcontinental corridors could play in collaboratively envisioning, planning, integrating, and applying roadway digital infrastructure to the enhanced safety and overall performance of the interstate highway system, and through it, the multimodal national transportation system. I will note, just before joining this webinar, I was reading an article in an ASCE newsletter that characterized the current flooding that is affecting many of us in the upper middle part of the country as quote unquote surreal. And I think if anything makes the point that we desperately need enhanced coordination at this national network scale, It is this response to these increasing events that undermine the resilience and reliability of our transportation system, in this context, precipitated by climate implications. So this is a very real issue, and what we hear today is more than theory, it's urgent practice. For the purpose of today's discussion, we'll be building from this definition of roadway digital infrastructure. We go to the next slide, Ted. Specifically, it is the integrated public and private sector information and communication technologies that create, exchange, and use or apply data and information to generate insights to improve decision-making, to enhance the performance of the overall transportation system. It certainly includes, but it is not just or even primarily data. It includes all the assets and the business models that generate, move, and process these data and translate them into insights for people to make decisions. Perhaps a pithier, more entertaining definition of roadway digital infrastructure comes from Daniela Bremer and some of the thought leaders in the AASHTO CAV state community of practice that gave us this equation for RDI as the sum of ITS and data to the power of 10. The helpful equation highlights that RDI supports and leverages the continued development, adaptation, and deployment of ITS, largely by government agencies for multimodal roadway traffic operations. But it also integrates transportation system performance management objectives through data-enabled insights across functions that include roadway infrastructure asset management, geospatial information systems, the integration of automation, electrification, and ground air mobility, and others. And that together, this combination of ITS and data are exponentially amplified in effectiveness, efficiency, and economy of scale by more nimbly coordinating government and industry, public and private sector, infrastructure, and digital services. Next slide, Ted. Over the past 3 years, you've suggested a national vision for roadway digital infrastructure that prioritizes accelerated and aligned modernization and interoperability of our respective federal, state, and industry-based enterprise data systems, including an increasing proportion of those that directly integrate mobile data sources. It also has prioritized the streamlining of data exchange through coordinated interjurisdictional data platforms, and finally, the integration of those vital decision support insights, increasingly incorporating and in fact enabling artificial intelligence and analytical tools such as digital twins. Next slide, please. This vision is the basis for a framework or strategy for national collaboration that recognizes 3 interrelated layers. At the bottom, a foundational layer recognizes the role of the national ITS architecture as an adaptable cornerstone for broader architectural interface and embraces the vital role of more actively collaborative strategic research alignment between government and industry innovation enterprises. The middle layer represents a deployment layer that prioritizes better information management through this alignment of incrementally enhanced enterprise data systems, versatile technologies for interoperable connectivity, and national roadway network data exchange and federated data platforms that build on the principles of data standards and strategic approaches, perhaps best illustrated by the success of things like the work zone data exchange. Finally, these integrated deployment layers can be projected topologically into metropolitan regions and smart communities linked to one another along transcontinental corridors to create capability for more responsive and even predictive operational and structural performance management of the national transportation system. Some of the illustrative elements of business case and anticipated value outcomes illustrated across the top banner in this slide include supply chain resilience and economic vitality, public health and transportation safety, faster, more effective emergency response and military mobility, and cohesive integration of electrification and automation into the transportation system. Next slide, Ted. As a community of partner national organizations, we committed to develop this strategy for collaboration at the TRB annual meeting in January of 2023. We introduced a draft of the strategy around which to structure specific near-term actionable national challenges this past January. And we look forward to sharing accountability with you this coming January to both refine and further accelerate this collaborative approach. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Ted, to talk a little bit more about transcontinental corridors in concert with Valerie.